right. Hello, and welcome to session 8 of our Mummy the Curse 2nd edition chronicle, Oceans of Eternity. It's been a while since we've gathered. We unfortunately had to miss last week, but just like the Deathless, we are here once again. You can't keep a good mummy down. And to give everyone a bit of a refresher on what's transpired since our group last gathered, on the last episode here of Oceans of Eternity, our mummies, Seshet, Tamos, and Nesret, had gone their separate ways for the night, after reclaiming their tomb from a scarab-headed fiend. Seshet had left to speak with the White Jackal, head of the Kentenu. Nesret and Minervina had left for a midnight stroll. Lastly, Tamos had waited back at the dilapidated manor for the arrival of a doctor, whom Father Vitatzes had set a runner to fetch in order to heal his inheritor, Vitalius. The doctor, a young man by the name of Eutropius, arrived a bit out of breath, but with tools in tow. The doctor, Eutropius, had exchanged a few words with Father Vitatzes, suggesting some sort of history between the two, and the doctor began to examine Vitalius and kind of inquired with Tamos about his connection to the patient and his knowledge of his injuries that he had sustained. The doctor had determined that Vitalius would require extended care and discussed their options. Tamos assured the doctor that money would be no issue, and they settled on bringing Vitalius to the home of our doctor, Eutropius, for care. Tamos assisted the doctor in transporting Vitalius to Eutropius's home. There, he ran into Alexia, Eutropius's sister, whom Tamos seemed to recognize, and she seemed to recognize him. They shared a brief, awkward exchange, neither entirely sure where they have seen the other, after which Tamos bid the pair a good night. Meanwhile, Nesret had just experienced a memory standing before the Hagia Sophia. He recalled the city burning and setting ablaze a different church that once stood in the very same spot. Pulled out of his flashback by a curious Minervina, the two shared a few words before also parting ways for the night. Back at the manor, Nesret pulled out the Bible that he had found in his tomb and began reading. He discovered that this was no ordinary Bible, and that passages had been intentionally altered to introduce elements of the ancient Iramite faith under the guise of more contemporary Christian trappings. Before Nesret could read further, however, he was interrupted by the arrival of Tamos and Seshet. The trio shared the information that they had learned thus far. Seshet extended White Jackal's invitation to the Hippodrome, to the races, to the rest of the Muret, and they agreed to join, wishing to meet this strange new Arisen themselves. The trio also discussed how to deal with the lingering threat of the fiend in their tomb before it returns. They realized that they would likely need a mortal sorcerer to assist them in dispelling this demon back to the depths of the Duat. Nesret reluctantly considered training Minervina in the finer arts of sorcery, while Seshet once again utilizes dreams of dead gods to try and pull a potential sorcerer into her orbit.
What about that one?
Yeah. Tamos and Nesret rested for the remainder of the night, sleeping, or trying to sleep at least, as the mortals do, trying to recuperate their willpower. Meanwhile, Sasha decided to wander the city. And while wandering the city's streets, Sasha managed to stir up another memory. Not one of Constantinople, but a more distant recollection. This time of her seated atop a queen's throne. And as she sat in the sort of lavish ornamentations of this throne room, she saw peasants throwing themselves at her feet, praying and begging and worshipping, but Sasha couldn't remember hearing their voices. The following morning, Tamos and Nesret awakened, as it were. Nesret began cleaning out the tomb of skeletons and debris, although as he entered, he once again felt the strange tingling sensation he first felt when installing the relic, the Jed, in the tomb, and at the edge of his perception, he briefly heard spectral voices wailing and crying in pain. He wondered if the voices might belong to the skeletons littering the tomb, and once again considered training Minervina as a sorcerer, that she might perhaps commune with the dead here to confirm his theory. Cleaning up, Nesret also discovers scratches and a broken fingernail embedded into the inside of the tomb's door, suggesting that the dead had failed to escape whatever fate fell upon them. He also discovered a piece of stone that looked as if it was a perfect replica of a broken off tip of a finger, down to the individual grooves of a fingerprint, the craftsmanship too impossibly fine to have been conceivably done by mortal hands, and concluded it most likely had been shaped by magic. And speaking of magic, Nesret drew upon his guild affinity to learn more about the item. His magic revealed to him that this piece, this finger, as it were, was most curiously made to be destroyed, to be broken down into pieces, into tesserae, the building blocks, as it were, of a mosaic. He also gained an image of the stone finger's creator, a Nubian man with sort of darkened skin, a slim yet athletic build, sort of long dreadlocks, yet with a very neatly trimmed beard. And drinking this all in, Nesret had a bit of a eureka moment as he realized that these details seemed to match up with the recurring vision that Minervina had spoken of. A sculptor methodically breaking down a lifelike statue into tiny pieces. Tamos, meanwhile, used the power of his guild affinity to telepathically check in on his inheritor, Vitalius. Now, he claimed to be fine, but Tamos ordered him to rest regardless. Tamos had also inquired about the traitor that had led to Vitalius's capture, and Vitalius revealed that he had met a masked man that night that smelled strongly of saffron. He recalled the name Feridun being spoken, and that his Greek had a slight Sassanid, a Persian accent, but little else. Seshet also used dreams of dead gods, once again, this time intending to compel Athanasius, the quaestor of the harbor, to attend the races at the hippodrome. And while she waited for fate to run its course, she caroused with the locals, gathering information about the hippodrome and the demes that dominate the races there. She learned that there were 4 demes: the blues, the greens, the whites, and the reds. Only the blues and the greens are major players and are influential enough in their own right to be almost quasi-political parties, or perhaps gangs, depending on your perspective.
Go Blues.
Go blues, go greens. Take your pick. Of these, speaking of the blues and the greens, the aristocracy tends to favor the blues, while the common folk tend to favor the greens. Lastly, bringing us back to where we had last left off, Minervina had arrived at the tomb, and she had found Nesret cleaning out the mess in the tomb. Now a mound of skeletal corpses that had kind of built up outside the tomb proper, and very narrowly managed to succeed segueing this awkward conversation to an invitation to join him for the races at the hippodrome. That aside, Nesret had also showed Minervina the lifelink stone finger he had found in the tomb, one which she seemed to recognize. And bringing us now full circle here. Again, we find ourselves in the tomb. You're having this conversation, Nesret, with Minervina. You've showed her this strange finger that you've unearthed as you were cleaning out the tomb, and there's this kind of fierce spark of recollection in her eyes. As you watch for her and her reaction, and you see this unfold, what do you do?
David?
We've already planned going to the hippodrome, right?
Yes, you've already invited her to the hippodrome. She's already agreed.
Okay. Guess I want to learn more about this finger, and scratch my chin a little bit. I'll say I should probably figure out the proper way to bury these bodies, these remains. I'll look at the pile.
Yes. And you kind of like make this little aside comment, and you look at the pile, and when you look back, almost quizzically, Minervina's still looking at that finger. Like, you just see her like almost as if she's kind of like phased out of like the environment. She's just like blankly staring at this thing in her hands, and like whatever comment that you've made, whether it's intended to be like funny or not, like it doesn't like even register like on her radar. Like, she just seems like she's like totally sucked into her own world, as it were.
Does she look bothered or anything? Or is she just like
not necessarily
like generic distraction?
Not necessarily bothered, but yes, a sense of like distracted, as you know, like she's like trailing off, lost in thought, but still kind of still staring at this finger in her hands.
I'll just ask her what's up.
So you ask her what's going on, and you don't get a response. And you see her just continue to stare at this figure. And, as you ask, like, it doesn't register on her radar, as it were. And as you watch her, as you wait for her to say something, why don't you give me sounds like probably a wits and empathy roll. Why don't we go with that to start?
Wits. Oh, at least I have a little bit of empathy. Oh, that's right. Nothing.
0 successes on 4 dice. So you try and get a read on Minervina, and there's little that you can surmise from this situation. You can't quite make heads or tails of it, but at the least, you know that she is apparently either choosing to ignore you or is unresponsive or unable to hear you. And like as you try and like make heads or tails of this, Minervina, she's got, the finger in her hand, and you see her hand like shake a little bit, and the finger falls to the floor. You hear a brief little snap sound as the little chunk of stone hits the floor and cracks again, splitting into another piece. And when you look back up again, you see Minervina's hands are still shaking. And she kind of like snaps out of it for a second and kind of like grabs her hand, kind of wrings it for a bit and tries to kind of compose herself. And she's like, sorry, where were we?
I'll pick it up, the 2 pieces. I'll pocket them. I'll be like, you okay?
And she just kind of looks at you and she's like, yeah, I'm fine. So, Hippodrome? Races?
Hippodrome! That seems like a... Yeah, let's head there.
Yeah. And as you are leaving, you see Minervina makes kind of one more almost pensive look back at the mound of corpses that you have in the hallway outside of your tomb. And kind of looks back for just a second and shakes it off again, and switches the topic of conversation back to the hippodrome, back to the races, and like kind of once again resumes a bit more of her, shall we say, bubbly demeanor. And as a lot of you kind of make your way there, she kind of goes back to more of the conversation that you were having the previous night, as it were. Now, with you and Minervina, did you want to try and make some sort of attempt to find something more fitting, shall we say, for Nesret's attire, or have you resigned yourself to attending the races in an Orthodox priest's robes?
Yeah, that's something I wanted to try to do today. Maybe I'll inquire with her if she has any ideas.
Ideas?
Well, I mean, this doesn't... right, does she think we could trade it for something more fitting, or...
Like, when you just say ideas, like, like you see an eyebrow kind of raise up a bit, and she's like, what are you suggesting?
Is something not priestly? I don't know if we... I don't know if we could trade this, or, I don't know, maybe seek a discount. I don't have any money.
Well, that is a bit of a problem, but you might be able to haggle for it. I mean, I don't know what you'd be able to get for it, but if you're eager to have something else, it's worth a shot, I suppose.
Wait, so it's just like it looks just priestly, but that's just because of the iconography, right?
Yeah, it's a kind of plain set of robes. It's kind of blackened in its appearance, a very like dark dye, but it's sort of intercut at certain points in the fabric with little white emblems of the cross. So it's kind of like black and white sort of priestly attire with these sort of ornate little crosses that are patterned in occasionally throughout the vestiment, as it were.
How many crosses are there?
You take like a brief kind of like glance, around it, and there's maybe about half a dozen different little cross emblems that have been kind of worked into the pattern of the fabric, as it were.
Oh, worked in. So they're not like patches that could be removed.
I mean, you might be able to like dye them.
Well, that sounds heretical. Dye 'em blood red. Dye 'em in the blood of my enemies.
I mean, that wouldn't be difficult for you as a mummy, especially at the height of your power right now. Well, close to the height.
How much time is it to the hippodrome?
It's not going to be too long. If you check the little map that I have for you guys, you can see the hippodrome kind of nestled on the southern half of the peninsula, and your guys' tomb, the manor, is just a bit northeast of that in the Mungana quarter. So it's a fairly short walk, maybe 20-30 minutes at most.
Oh, that is really close. Um. I don't think I want to steal something. You know what? Maybe it is better just to go to the hippodrome in this.
All right.
Much effort.
Accept defeat. Resign yourself to the attire of a priest. Are you, by chance, still carrying that Bible with you? Are you like holding on to that as like a personal possession, or have you like stashed that somewhere in the tomb?
I probably would have tried to have that somewhere secure in my tomb.
All right.
Because it's not a regular Bible.
Yeah. Oh, so we're not quite getting the full attire, you know, Bible and robes. So we're halfway there, but we'll take that. So you and Minervina make your way to the hippodrome to attend the day's races. Now, what of Seshet and Tomos? Are there any other preparations or other matters that you wish to attend to before we transition to the races?
Off the top of my head.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
Anything?
Maybe after the races.
Oh, that's a different story. Anything for Tomos?
He would actually like to, thinking about, you know, White Jacqueline, that being kind of his name. We don't actually know his real one. He kind of gets a thought going, and he wants to quickly contact Vitalis about one more little detail. Using Nexus of the Soul Affinity.
Okay, so checking in on your inheritor once again. Reaching out through the guild secrets that have been ingrained into your soul. You telepathically reach out to Vitalius, who's still recuperating, still resting and recovering, presumably in Eutropius's home, being tended to by the doctor. What, pray tell, do you ask? What information are you hoping to get from Vitalius?
I say, Vitalius, I'm sorry to bother you again, but it occurs to me that I might need a cover of sorts, at the very least a different name than my own. Did I happen to go by any names before I was cast away? Any Greek names you can think of that might work?
I mean, I can think of a few, though I do not know what name per se that you had gone by in your last descent. It wasn't, how do I say this? It was not the usual order of business during your last descent. Things were rushed, shall we say. But I was not privy to names that you had taken for yourself.
Fair enough.
I was not high enough of a station at the time. I had known you as your title. It's the Ill Wind. But if a name is what you seek, I could think of a few if that is what you wish of me, though that feels presumptuous I suppose, for me to name one such as yourself. I would not wish to take such an honor.
Then would you prefer to advise me on a name I've thought of recently, partially from what I've heard in crowds and also just what I can think of. Do you think the name Petrus would work in this society?
Petrus?
Yes.
Yes. I don't see why not.
Good. Then that is enough. From now on, unless, of course, speaking to people who do know my name, simply refer to me as Petrus.
Petrus. Understood.
At least in public.
Understood, my lord. I will do as you ask.
And let me know if you overhear Eutropius use my name. Nothing serious, but I'd like to know who he says it to if you happen to hear anything. I will rectify the situation.
Of course.
Later.
I will see to it.
Thank you.
I will discuss the matter with Tropius. The matter of your privacy, of course.
I trust you. Thank you. Get well, and you'll break the connection, you know.
The lion, as it were, goes dead. Very well. So, does that conclude your preparations then?
Well, only other thing is he would just tell Nesseret and Sheshet just to not say his actual name in public, especially in the Hippodrome. He just
as the memories are coming back to you, like, oh yeah, maybe I should be using my name.
Yeah.
Memory's such a finicky thing. So, speaking of that, of speaking to Nesseret and Seshet, have you guys made some sort of arrangement to like meet outside of the Hippodrome? Are you planning on like going together? You know, what's the situation, or are you just kind of like trying to find yourselves amongst the crowd? What's the plan?
He said he had the White Jackal told me he had a box, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I would have probably told them about the box and, you know, maybe just meet you guys there, unless you guys like really strongly objected to that.
All right. Fair enough. So we move then to the Hippodrome, to the races, and the city itself is quite a buzz, as it were. Most of the city is kind of turned out for, I should say most of the city, a good chunk of the city has turned out for this event, and things somehow feel more livelier than they were the day prior. Most of the like stalls and stands have kind of shifted themselves towards the kind of down the meze, closer to the Hippodrome. You have, you know, all these food vendors that have kind of set up shop outside to feed the endless throngs of the hungry crowd. And you definitely smell the food before you even make your way through the Augustion to the Hippodrome proper. And it's crowded, to put it lightly. The hordes of people like slowly kind of shuffle in to this very long, kind of oval-like building, more a U-shaped oval, shall we say. And people kind of slowly filter in through the handful of entrances, and people like begin to take your seats, and you can see many of the folks have already taken their seats prior. People have woken up, early to fight or claim for the best seats in the house. Although some of these seats, as you're already aware of, have been cordoned off or sectioned off for specific parties. The most noticeable of these, as you enter the Hippodrome proper, is the box for the Emperor himself, for Justinian, and it sits quite prominently atop the Hippodrome here, and it's connected quite literally to the Imperial Palace itself. Just a short walk, as it were, for the Emperor to go from his throne to this to a slightly different throne, shall we say, overseeing the races. Though, as you peer at the this magnificent box, as it were, the chairs for the Emperor and Empress are still empty at this moment, as the people begin to fill in the stadium, as it were. Now, between the three of you, I feel as if Seshet is probably the first to make her way here, as the rest of you had kind of slept for the night. Seshet stayed up, was chatting with the locals, maybe even arrived with a group that she had been carousing with, to maybe they were like, oh, we can show you the good seats, that sort of thing. So
I imagine I've assembled some kind of entourage.
Yeah, you've got a few locals that you've been drinking with, from the night and morning prior.
It's kind of them to pay for all my food and drink, these locals, isn't it?
Yes. So with that, you've made your way into the Hippodrome here. Now, the structure itself is quite impressive. It's about 450 meters, or almost 1,400 some feet long, and about 130 meters, about 427 feet wide. So pretty large structure. And as you see, at the northern end seem to stand the starting gates for the races, and at the southern end you have the Sphindome, this kind of curved tribune, the U, as it were, of this U-shaped structure. And you see that there are a trio of spina that are kind of stand out kind of along the middle of the track. So the empty space, shall we say, of the U of the racetrack is filled with a number of these monuments. The most interesting of which that immediately draws your attention, there is a monolithic obelisk that has been constructed. I should say constructed, that's been erected here in the Hippodrome. You had seen the tip of it kind of above the, just poking just above the lip, as it were, of the Hippodrome before, but now you can see it in its full glory, shall we say. And as you kind of shuffle through the crowds, kind of making your way in, you can see that this is an ancient edifice. This is an obelisk. Not one of Irem, though it harkens to it most definitely. It seems to be an imitation, a pale reflection, as it were. No doubt the construction of the successor state that inherited Kemet, the black land that you had once perhaps called home. There appears to be writing, hieroglyphs that have been etched upon this monument, although, from this angle you can only see but a single side, a single face of the obelisk. And again, from the writing, you can tell that it is the hieroglyphs are not quite Iremite, but a descendant, a derivative of it, and you understand it somewhat dimly, in sort of vague terms.
I understand it very well because of my affinity.
Ah, yes, your beautiful affinity. How could I forget? Let me rephrase that. The writing itself is a pale imitation of Iremite, but your comprehension of it is, yes, unaffected. Though it is, however, still affected by the fact that you only have a single perspective on what is a presumably 4-paneled structure. But from what you can read, and also what you can make out from this distance, it appears to be a sort of a tribute, or a sort of a ceremonial sort of celebration, shall we say, a monument that has been erected to sort of to celebrate a victory, and presumably from the reliefs that you can read, appears to be of a conquest, of a pharaoh's victory in a campaign, a series of battles. Though again, you can't quite get the full picture from this angle. Aside from this quite perhaps literal blast from the past for you, there are other elements. There are statues of gods, of emperors, animals, and heroes that sort of adorn various parts of the hippodrome. There's one statue that you actually. Why don't you give me an academics roll? Let's see. Let's see how much of this you managed to recognize.
Academics intelligence.
Yeah. Let's go with that.
Yeah, sure. 6 successes. I'm something of a history buff,
Yes, 6
I know
successes.
a thing or two.
Just a thing or two. So you're quite familiar with some of these works, of which many of them stand out to you. 3 of which draw your attention. There is a 4th century BC statue of Heracles, made by the famed sculptor Lysippos, as well as a Romulus and Remus with the she-wolf Lupa. And another one of these columns that adorns this structure is a much thinner column that looks as if it's a set of interwoven serpents making its way up the pole that ends at the height of it in sort of 3 serpent heads which the three of them balance a golden bowl in the center of this. And
Yes.
what was that?
Like a deuce. Cadet. There.
Kind of, yes, kind of like that. Where it's a set of like intertwined snakes that make up this pole, and the three heads of the snakes kind of bow out, as it were, and a golden sort of bowl rests in the grooves of the three snakes. And you also recognize this this particular item. This is also something that, shall we say, doesn't belong here. This appears to be the serpentine column, and you are dimly aware of your studies throughout the vastness of history that this once stood before the Temple of Apollo at Delphi. It was a monument much like the obelisk from Egypt. This too symbolized a victory, that of the Greek forces against the Persians. Not as old per se as the obelisk, as it were, but similar in scope, or similar in theme, I should say. Both celebrating, both monuments erected to celebrate a military victory.
Strange question. But are any of these a forgery? I know that automatically.
No, they appear to be genuine articles. Yes, both of these appear to have been quite literal cultural treasures, yes, that have been ransacked from their homes and brought here as the sort of garish display for all to see at the Hippodrome here. And more than that, on the theme of garishness, is another obelisk that sits at the other end of this sort of middle row of obelisks, of columns, of pillars, of spina, I believe they're called. This one appears to be a much more modern construction, a sort of contemporary obelisk, as it were. This one seemingly constructed as kind of a mirror of the Egyptian obelisk that you've seen. They're kind of placed along this row here, and it, at least from what you can surmise, it's probably been erected to kind of balance out the general aesthetic. It looks perhaps a bit weird to have two pillars. Might have the other one here to make a nice aesthetically pleasing presentation. But it doesn't appear to have any significance to you. At least it appears to be a much more modern construction. Aside from that, there are also a more, say, contemporary construction. The kind of crowning statues, as it were, quite fitting for the Hippodrome. There are a set of 4 bronze horses that kind of top some of these columns as kind of the pinnacle, as it were, of the Hippodrome here. And aside from these 4 magnificent bronze horses, there are other kind of statues laying about, that have been erected about the grounds as you kind of walk about and try to make your way to the White Jackal's box, as it were. From what you can see, statues of previous chariot drivers, famous athletes who have been enshrined here, and the horses that have led them to their victories. And there are other sort of like rare tapestries hanging about, and also quite quizzically, that you would also recognize with your exceptional success. There's also a statue of Hecate at the site, the Greek, Greek goddess, who presides over magic and spells. Yes, a strange sort of eclectic collection here, pilfered as they've been from presumably across the empire. Not necessarily entirely aligned in theme, shall we say, but nonetheless, they are here. And, indeed, making your way through all this, and to save myself from explaining this all again, this is also what Nesseret and Tomos see as you guys make your way through the Hippodrome here at, when you arrive. Though perhaps with not as much context, shall we say, as Seshet here, but nonetheless. So, you spy the White Jackal's box. Quite predictably, it seems to be kind of situated just over the entrance that connects to the Palace of Antiochus. Also, seemingly quite convenient for our fellow Arisen. Now, the stands are quite bustling. People are kind of jockeying for seats, though clearly the levels kind of closer to the action, as it were, have kind of been are more sparse. Perhaps they've been kind of sectioned off for the wealthy, the elites, and the further you go back, the more they're filled out, shall we say. Now, the White Jackal's box is for the most part, is empty, save for the lone figure of the White Jackal himself. And you see that he's kind of leaning back in his seat. He's got some sort of plush cushion that he's been sitting on, something to comfort himself from the the uncomfortable stone seating. And in one hand he has a chalice, as it were, and he kind of like idly swirls it about, but as you spy him from across the stand, he doesn't really make any real attempt to drink it, just kind of playing with this gold drinking instrument. And you can see that he doesn't seem to be too preoccupied with the games they've yet to start. He just is kind of looking out amongst the crowd, but he doesn't appear to have spotted you yet. There's thousands of souls that are filtering into this. What do you do? How do you make an entrance? What's Sesha doing?
Yeah, I think she just kind of casually approaches the box. There aren't any gods or there anything, right?
No. Once again, there's been relatively little protection for White Jackal, though, given his status as a fellow immortal demigod, mortal protection is perhaps a bit redundant, but nonetheless. as you kind of calmly approach the box, as it were, the white jackal catches sight of you, and he just kind of sits in his chair, and as you're kind of making your way over, he just kind of raises his glass to you, although he does not drink of it. Where do you take a seat like immediately next to him?
I give him like I get it's like a courtesy nod, and I take I guess like one of the pillows like next to him, like, good to see you again.
Yes. It is.
Is there any,
it's good to see you as well. And what was your question?
I was gonna ask if there's like another like goblet like around with wine or whatever, or is he just like that's the only one here?
So as you're inquiring about this, or were you thinking? Were you thinking? Sorry, were you thinking this thought? Almost as if reading your mind as you kind of get settled in, you see the white jackal kind of leans under a seat, and he picks up another goblet, and in the other hand he has an amphore of wine. He kind of pops the cask off, and he offers the goblet to you. And you take the goblet, and he pours the wine for you before corking the clay cask and kind of setting it aside. As you take perhaps an exploratory drink of your beverage.
Yeah, I do actually drink it.
Yeah, it's it's good quality wine, though, given your binge, as it were, the other day, the experience has lost a bit of its luster. It's not quite as titillating as it was before, but you're left with that kind of that just slight sort of bitter twinge of like, oh, like, I've already done this. I've already experienced this. It's not as fresh anymore. It's not quite the same.
I'm probably a lot more moderate in my consumption. It's kind of boring now.
It's not quite as exhilarating the second time around. You're nonetheless. You take a drink from the glass of wine, and the white jackal kind of turns to you and kind of sets his goblet aside, and he just simply says, I'm glad that you've decided to join me today.
How could I say no to watch the games at the Hippodrome? I've heard the people of the city talk about it a lot, but I have not seen it myself.
Well,
From what I've heard of them, I feel I'm drawn to the blues. They seem like my kind of team.
A commendable choice, might I say. And you see the white jackal kind of undoes his tunic a bit, and you can see a blue, brightly blue-hued shirt beneath his sort of second layer of clothing. And he kind of gives you a little grin and a nod at that notion. Well, you are in good company then.
Yeah. I applaud your choice of team. Yeah, I imagine like we get like through like some like small talk at like some point and whatnot. Um, yeah, she's kind of like to begin with, just trying to like be cordial, try to like, you know, establish like some kind of like conversation before going into like, uh, asking like big questions and whatnot. Um, yeah, I can't really think of any small talk to mind though, unless you got anything.
By all means. So, you kind of engage in a bit of small talk, kind of pass the time a bit. Maybe touching back on some of the quaint little conversations you had shared the night before, and generally discussing the hippodrome and the deems, and White Jackal has taken somewhat of an interest in these races. He kind of goes over some of the drivers, the stars, shall we say, manning the chariots, and which of these teams are favored to win, who to place your bets on. And on that note, you also see the White Jackal produce a kind of a hefty pouch, as it were, that kind of tings with that lovely sound of shifting metallic coins as he kind of gently tosses it up and down, and kind of accentuating that notion of which teams to bet upon, and clearly the Jackal here is a bit of a gambling man, someone who's willing to take a risk, perhaps. But on that note, one other, should we say, comment that the White Jackal might bring up, that same note, is he'll inquire if you intend to place your bets today. Are you feeling lucky, Seshet?
I would, but my descent was so far has been a complicated one, and I am without my usual liquidary. Something I plan on fixing soon, though.
It happens to the best of us. And on that note of complications, our other two, Arisen, Nesret and Tamos. At this point, you guys have managed to filter into the hippodrome, and much like Seshret, you see the same sights, the obelisk, serpentine column, these statues, all the bells and whistles that have been brought out to adorn this place. And as well, you see the box that has been that you've been informed of, sitting by the passageway to the palace of Antiochus. And again, you see Seshet and a man that you have not met before, that seem to have been locked in some sort of conversation, as it were. Though, luckily enough for the two of you, in your filtering into the hippodrome and working your way over towards the private box, the two of you have bumped into each other. And I'm not sure, perhaps, how Amos feels about this, but you do see that Nasret has brought a +1. What words do you guys share as you by luck or perhaps fate have bumped into each other on your way towards the booth?
Well, this is convenient.
Awfully convenient. I imagine you didn't have any trouble coming here, and I totally forgot what your name, your nickname is. You're going by now.
Not alone.
Just simply don't refer to me as Thomas in public.
Yeah,
Just
but you
call
had
me-
the.
Oh, ill wind. As for the name I prefer you to use in public, simply say Petras or
Petras.
if anything, just don't say my name. Just let me introduce myself if it's easiest.
Maybe we should all take a bit of privacy, so we don't know who is friend and who is foe.
True.
And you know, I'll talk to Minervina about that, trying to avoid using our real names.
Are you gonna try and come up with a name on the spot here?
Oh,
You might be alright. I just, at least for now, it's just in my case, being me.
Or do you ask Minervina to come up for a name for you, or are you gonna continue to
You
go
know
by
what?
Nasret?
in jest, I will. House Minervina is like, maybe I should go by father for now. As yeah, I am wearing the robes.
But father who? But nonetheless, you make the, should we say, the snap decision to just let people call you father, for the time being, perhaps.
Daddy.
Yeah. Let's not go there. Anyway.
Maybe later.
God. Anyway, getting back to the task at hand. The two of you have had this chance to reconvene. You've shared a few words. The two of you can spy Seshet speaking to this fellow that you presume to be the white jackal, kind of off a bit in the distance, not too terribly far away, and they seem to be kind of locked in quiet conversation, and seem to be pleased enough with each other. Things seem cordial, at least from this distance. Now, the two of you, how do you intend to what do you want to do in this situation? Like, do the two of you want to just like walk up and introduce yourselves, or do you want to just try and like listen into the conversation, or what what's going through your guys' heads as you weigh your options here?
I'll probably just walk in there like I belong there. That's how this works, right?
By all means.
Grab my ladder
Uh, you grab it. You get your
a ladder.
yeah. And what of Tomos? You know, it seems like Nesret's gonna just go right up in there. Are you gonna follow him along in that? Are you gonna try and hold back, or is the urge to converse with this man stronger than your desire for secrecy?
You know, I think to start at least, he might see if he can eavesdrop, stay outside. Of course, if he gets nothing, then he might just figure it's better just to go in. So,
All right. Why don't you go ahead and give me, we'll say a, I think in this case, it'll probably be a wits and stealth as you try and like blend into the crowd, shall we say. Try to look unassuming, try and like inch your way close enough to hear, but still looking inconspicuous.
two successes.
All right. So 2 successes. So you you do your best to try and blend in with the crowd there, and try and eavesdrop this conversation here. Meanwhile, Nesret and Minervina broach the subject, as it were, approaching the private box. What sort of entrance do you want to make, Nesret? Are you gonna like start by introducing yourselves? Are you gonna like wait until Sachet presumably introduces you, or what's your plan as you barge in here?
I'll just kind of I mean I guess I'll stroll in, but I won't make like a huge entrance. But I want to like interrupt any conversation.
Sure. And knowing that, where do you intend to sit? Do you want to like flank the White Jackal here, or are you intending to sit next to Sachet? What's your what seat do you choose at the event here? Where do you position yourself?
I'll sit next to her.
All right. So, going back just a bit, you know, you were sharing, Sachet, you and the White Jackal were, you know, in the middle of your conversation. Even the subject of complications, you know, gets brought up. And it is on that note that a complication, shall we say, makes itself known as you spy Nesret, and also, perhaps a surprise to you, Minervina is also in tow behind Nesret here, and the two of them making their way up into this the White Jackal's booth, and sort of in this like split second moment, of like the two of them like making their way in. You know, White Jackal's looking at them, looking back at you. Do you say anything? Do you wait for him to say something? How do you?
I'll speak first, and she says like, "Oh, how silly of me! I forgot. This is my companion and member of my Merit, Nesret. I might have told him about the game today."
And
And I do remember I did tell Shashat I was bringing Minervina. We did. That was a part of the conversation before, so she should have known.
Yes.
That's what I say. I'm just.
Well, I'm just making sure.
So you introduce Nesret. Do you say anything about Minervina, who is following behind him, or do you just kind of leave that note off of that?
And I think she won't introduce Minervina.
Okay.
She kind of like, not out of any like deliberate attempt to exclude her, but just because she kind of like forgets she's like there, like.
She's beneath your notice.
Yeah, kind of like I just casually forget she's there.
Fair enough. So, with that, you introduce Nesret. Nesret kind of goes to take a seat beside the White Jackal, and the White Jackal kind of leans back in his seat a bit, and he says, "Well, isn't this a surprise? A pleasure to make your acquaintance." And he extends a hand out to you. You take it.
I'll shake it and say a pleasure as well.
And the grip is quite firm. And the figure. And since you haven't seen this individual before, let me reiterate. This White Jackal, he gives you the impression of a young Libyan man, perhaps in his mid-20s, somewhere in there. His skin is olive. His hair is kind of this long, dark brown. He's kind of dressed in these kind of loose linens. Something quite nice, but clearly there's an element of comfort there than just pure aesthetic, showing off. But nonetheless, you shake his hand. His grip is quite firm, and he kind of looks you dead in the eyes, and he simply says that it is a pleasure to meet a fellow Arisen. There are so few of us that I see these days since the diaspora.
How much it's a pleasure to meet him too. And my memory's been a little bit fuzzy, and I guess I'll inquire about this event.
The diaspora.
The diaspora.
And
Sorry.
oh, what were you saying?
I was just gonna explain it myself out of character. Sorry.
Oh, I mean, if you go ahead if you want.
From my understanding, the diaspora is when all the mummies after the first Soviet term left Egypt, because there was a crap load of mummies, and so many of them packed into like one small little place caused a lot of trouble.
But Yes, more or less. But suffice to say, you know, outside of meta, the white jackal will, inform you much the same, though he specifically references how our kind has kind of scattered to the winds over the centuries. That the deathless have been spread thin across the face of the earth, and it is a rare event, as it were, to run into another kindred soul, but a welcome one.
Right. Welcome, man.
I'll also bring up. Well, she's not an elephant. I'll bring up. I hope you don't mind. I brought an acquaintance. She's been very instrumental since I've arisen. Well, working up. I don't know the proper term.
Arisen, I think that's right.
Yeah, since you've arisen.
That's it. Well, yeah. Would saying we've arisen be the proper term?
Yeah. Or since you've begun your descent.
Begun my descent. I'll introduce Minervina.
Yeah, and indeed, you do, and Minervina does her best attempt at a curtsy, shall we say, best attempt at being polite. Though clearly she's not accustomed to being around, shall we say, perceived royalty. And nonetheless, despite her, shall we say, social faux pas, the white jackal seems rather magnanimous, and he kind of like takes her hand and gives her a kind of a warm acknowledgement of her existence, and insists again that it is his pleasure. And Minervina seems a bit flattered, but after this warm introduction, the white jackal quite quickly turns his attention towards specifically the two of you, as things kind of drag on. He's not. You can tell. Quite obviously, he's not very interested in Minervina. But, with that, on that note, the races begin, as it were, and you can hear kind of the triumphant roar of the crowd as the first set of chariots come shooting out of the starting gates and kind of whip around the hippodrome. You can hear the thunderous beating of the horses' hooves, and quite spectacularly you see, as the race kind of progresses, one of the chariots takes the turn a bit too wide, and you see the driver and the chariot kind of spill out, crashing onto its side, and the crowd kind of erupts in cheers and shouts, drawn to the perceived violence of the event. It's exhilarating for the crowd to see fellow mortals come so close with a brush to death, and nonetheless, the driver,
I understand.
manages to kind of dust himself off, and seems to be relatively unharmed, though the same cannot be said for his chariot. And nonetheless, the races continue, and as they commence, you see the white jackal again. He's kind of he's got this pouch of presumably gold or the currency that he's that's now become the occupation of his hands. He's kind of abandoned the goblet, or the pretense of the goblet, and he pays most of his attention towards a lot of you, but occasionally kind of glances over to the races, and he reiterates to you, Nesret, that asks if you are. Actually, let me take that back. He looks at you, and as this race is underway, he inquires as to what team, pray tell, what deem are you rooting for today's races? Have you picked a chariot? Have you picked a color?
How much have I found out about the colors I hear?
You were walking here with Minervina, and she probably filled you in on some of the basics while you were making your way over. And again, to the best of your knowledge, you know that the main teams are the blues and the greens. Well, there are also the whites and the reds. But the blues tend to be favored by the aristocracy, while the greens tend to be favored more by the common class.
I don't think I'm particularly invested, so I don't think I think I'll probably say the blues, knowing who I'm talking with.
Yeah, so you claim to favor the blues, perhaps in some effort to curry favor with the white jackal. And it seems to go over well, and he as well to you kind of pulls aside the outer layer of his tunic and reveals the nice bright blue underneath, and she simply says, "A wise choice." And punctuating that wise choice, you see the blue chariot sweep in at the finish line, and you see the white jackal kind of toss the coin pouch into the air and kind of catches it out of midair, and you see a faint smile spread across the Arisen's face. So, I now have the company of the two of you. And you, miss. As entertaining as the races are, there are other matters to discuss. And he kind of takes the pouch that he had set aside, kind of tucks it back into the shirt, and he kind of waves away, and he's like, I have other bets, but I'm confident that they too will play off. I suppose we shall see. With a lot of you here, I have some business to discuss. I had intended to share this with Seshet, but I can't see why I wouldn't share it with you as well. the more the merrier, I suppose.
Does he really suppose? I want to try to read him.
Yeah, go ahead and give me a wits and empathy.
Okay, here we go. Any penalty?
No, but it will actually. Yeah, I will give you a penalty. I'll apply his composure, which will be a -4.
Okay, this is chance die then. But
8.
no.
No dice. You need that 10 on the chance. So fail. Like you try and get a read on him, but he's a pretty cool cat. He's you're not sure if he is genuine or not. But you would wager from his perhaps gambling behavior that he is a it's a bit of an anachronistic term, but a poker face, shall we say, and perhaps a good one. You can't quite make heads or tails of the white jackal, but nonetheless, matters of business. But before we get to the nitty gritty, I've had some time to speak with Sachet here, but I've yet to be acquainted with you, Nesret. I do prefer to be acquainted with those I intend to do business with. Now,
Is that understandable?
trust is something to be earned. And I am sure you will earn my trust in time. But let's start small, shall we? Your connection to Sachet here. How do the two of you know each other? Are you have you formed a Mret, as it were, or is this a certain kind of working relationship?
This feels like this is directed at Nesret, right?
Directed at Nesret, but it's open-ended enough.
I'll let him answer that one.
We had waken up in sealed tombs. Conveniently right next to each other. I don't have much memory of a history, but circumstances seem to indicate that we've worked together in past life.
I see. Well, that is a strange event. But such things happen, I suppose. Interesting. Now, Nesret, what is it that you want? You've clearly made some effort to speak with me here. Shown some sort of interest. I'm curious. What has brought you here today?
Okay, so I'm trying to remember. What was the exact note we received? Do we have a copy of that?
You,
Oh, those.
Seshet had received an invitation.
Yeah.
You are essentially crashing this party.
I was invited and not informed of anything. Okay.
I wasn't sure if Seshet made that clear when extending the
Yeah.
invitation, that it wasn't for everyone. But nonetheless, well, actually, that's a good point. Let's establish that. Was that even something that would have been brought up, or was that a detail that Seshet would have overlooked, or just made an assumption of like, oh, it'll be fine?
Torn. Yeah, I think she deliberately left it out. Like, she knew, like, it was a party for two, but, like, you know, kind of invited them anyway, kind of deal.
And then I brought a +1.
And then you brought another +1.
I think
Ooh-wee.
she's trying to see, like, how much can she, like, bother this guy, like...
what it
He
takes to
obviously-
phase him.
Yeah, what's it take to phase him? And it's just like, this is just her opening move.
Yeah. Well, this
I
is.
think I have my answer.
Oh yeah. Go ahead.
I think I'll tell him that
Like, she knew...
I guess my whole point in being here is I'm trying to find, I guess, people to work with. Well, I guess, work with just kind of get my footing, and what better than a fellow Arisen?
Fair enough, I suppose. Well, and this one, and just kind of gestures towards the woman, towards Minervina, sitting beside you.
We seem to have a strong connection. I don't know much about it yet, but there is. This doesn't. This isn't the first time I've met her. Is that a fair way to say?
I see.
Yeah, there's some kind of connection between the two of us.
Yeah. The white jackal just kind of nods along. Clearly he's a bit perplexed, shall we say, why you felt the need to drag her into this. But it doesn't seem to bother him, more of just a curiosity. Well,
oh, the truth is, to him, I don't know much about it.
well, this is going on. Tomos, are you just continuing to, listen into all this? Like, you seem to have found a decent spot. You can hear what's going on. Do you just continue to listen and try and stay out of sight? Or if at any point you want to jump into the conversation, feel free to interrupt, as it were.
I think I'm good where I am at the moment.
All right. So, with that, kind of established your motivation for coming here. But, given a bit of context, nonetheless. So, the white jackal. He's just gonna switch back to business. Where? So the two of you, from what I understand of your situation, found yourselves in a bit of a difficult position.
Nothing I can't recover from.
I have no doubt of that. But given the time that we are so graciously granted by our judges, time is our most precious resource. And I can assist you. Matters of reasserting yourselves, so to speak. Your need of coin. I have coin in ample supply. And as he says that, the blues cross the finish line again first. And you see the white jackal smile again. And, or if there's some other assistance that you require to get yourselves up to speed, I would be happy to assist you in such endeavor, though my time is equally precious. I don't know if what Sachet has told you, but I have dreams. I have aspirations. Things that I would like to see accomplished. There are certain matters which trouble me. Certain things I would rather my attention not be drawn to. I am a man focused on my vision. I do not wish to be distracted with petty concerns, shall we say. And there are petty concerns that bother me, but they're nothing a pair of enterprising Arisen could handle. There's a matter. I've had something stolen from me. I had a shipment that was to have arrived 2 days ago. It came into port, and just as quickly as it had arrived, it had vanished in transit. Now, this matter concerns me, but not enough that I wish to divert my attention from my designs. Of the goods that have been taken from me, shall we say, that have gone missing, perhaps to be more appropriate, though I presume them stolen given their contents. I'd like you to find my property. Do what you will with those that have taken from me. I would prefer to see them punished for their arrogance, though I would leave the terms of their sentence up to you.
What is this shipment? What was stolen?
Yes. A set of tablets have been taken from me. They should be within a locked chest, and he proceeds to describe the chest to the best of his ability. A kind of plain oaken chest, as it were, with sort of brass fittings. Nothing too fancy that it might draw suspicion. But the chest itself should contain a set of stone tablets that have been packed with quite densely with hay to try and to keep them safe during their seafaring voyage. And hopefully they are still in the condition that they were found in.
Do you know who'd be interested in such tablets?
I do have my suspicions, but they are little more than that. I don't wish to taint your perception with my biases. But nor do I wish to divulge the contents of these tablets. It is a matter of discretion, this task that I've set before you, a matter of trust, as it were. These tablets, shall we say, may bear some information, some history that individuals such as ourselves might find interesting. I have yet to have the opportunity to peruse the tablets myself, obviously, given their theft. But I would like the contents to remain as such. If you find yourselves capable of suppressing your curiosity. Is that something that you think you can manage? I know it's awfully tempting.
I'm not a child. I understand that you do not wish for us to read these tablets.
And of you?
Yeah, Yeah, I understand.
Good. Good. Understanding is one thing, but agreeing is another.
I
Deals.
promise.
Yeah,
I promise, on behalf of my judge, that I will not read your tablets.
And who might that be?
I serve the great Nefertem.
Good. I would expect a degree of discernment from a follower of the Eternal Lotus. Well, I have made it clear what I want, what I wish of you. But what is it that the rest of... What is it that you want from me? What can I do for you? I've made offers, but
Well,
it's best we set the
last-
terms, I suppose.
Last night you told me of a meditation technique that caught my attention. I'd be very interested in knowing more about that.
Yes, a refuge for one's memories. Yes, that is something I can do. It is not a secret I am willing to divulge lightly, but should you complete this task for me satisfactorily, I would be willing to share such secrets with you. And of you, that's right. Is this also what you desire?
I'm actually, I'm a little bit more curious. I'd like to learn a little bit more about his plans. He's talked about building things here. Yeah, I guess I would just want to know some more information about the city.
About my designs for the city.
Yeah.
That is a reasonable request, I suppose. Very well. Should you complete this task for me, I shall enlighten you with the, shall we say, the more subtle details plan of my design. I don't know what all Sachet has shared with you or not. And it's a very pointed not with you. But
I haven't said shit about building up to these two.
yeah.
Mainly
Which
because,
makes the accent even more concerning, perhaps, for Nesret here. That Seshet knows something that was not shared with you. But suffice to say, I will explain to your heart's content what I intend to do. Finer details of my of my grand design, as it were. But it's a simple enough request, I suppose. And
then
oh, go ahead.
I'd like to maybe bring up about potential a down payment to maybe assist in some preparation. I'll mention, I'm not sure, should anything happen, I don't want to draw attention to the actions of a priest.
A down payment.
Nothing much. I'm mostly looking for a tire.
Well, I have been rather successful today, I suppose. Consider this one a token of my generosity, a gesture of goodwill, shall we say. I did say the trust is earned, and that goes both ways. I trust you to complete this task for me, and with that, I shall entrust you this. And he pulls that little satchel of gold that he's been holding on to, that coinage, and he extends his hand out towards you, tempting you to take it, Nesret.
I'll accept it, and I'll state, it's a foolish decision to take what does not belong to you.
So, I'm sorry, you said you accept the coinage?
Yeah, I'm going to accept it, and I guess the way I'm kind of stating it is, I'll deal with the problem by saying, people should keep their hands off of what does not belong to them.
Indeed. And with that, as you you take the coinage. The white jackal kind of stands for a moment, kind of stretches his old bones, as it were, and he takes a moment to kind of step back, to kind of turn around so we can look at both of you, to your face rather than kind of the back and forth aside. And he says, "It's a pleasure doing business with you. I see a long and fruitful relationship in our future. The item that you seek, I've had some of my men poking around, though it is not their area of expertise, shall we say. I don't know if you have any connections within the harbor, but from what I've heard, at least, someone, or rather, a group of someones, has been, we say, operating out of the harbor. And the detail that most, shall we say, physically drew my attention. It seems that a symbol has been appearing on some of the cargo making its way through the harbor. Many of these containers, such marked, have similarly gone missing shall we say. I care not for the others, that is their concern. But the shipments, they were marked with a cartouche, symbol of a lizard's eye. Unfortunately, that's all I have for now. But speaking of eyes, you see the white jackal's gaze kind of follow up into the stands, and they pause for a moment, and he looks back to the two of you, and he says, "It appears that we are not the only interested parties here."
I look up. What do I see?
Why don't you give me a perception roll?
What would be your perception?
Wits and composure. Wits in my case is 4 dice.
That'll be against Tomos's 2 successes.
I got 2 successes.
Yeah, one.
What do you want to do in the case of a tie, Trevor?
On a tie, I believe it is defenders win. So in this case, as Tomos is the active party, as it were, is trying to disguise himself, and seeing that you've matched, he's failed to exceed your perceptive defenses. So Nesret doesn't manage to spot Tomos in the crowd, but Sasha, you just barely manage to catch. You kind of like glaze over him for a second, and your eyes kind of snap back as you spy Tomos, who's kind of situated a few bleachers, as it were, or a few rows of seats back, kind of nestled above, just in the next section where you kind of have more of the middle to lower classes, as it were, the middle rows of the hippodrome.
Okay. Yeah, I squint my eyes, and I'm looking huh. Oh, that. I apologize. That is my other companion, and I wave over Tomos. But I don't say his name out loud because he asked me not to. But I've already forgotten his name already, so.
Well, we've just established the name, but Petrus, I believe.
Yeah, Petrus.
Yes.
But yeah,
Honestly, forgetting, just not saying anything works too.
You've been had.
Yes, I could just walk away. Yeah, what the hell? I'll just walk towards you guys. Not really just acting like I don't really care.
He has trust issues.
And yeah, you kind of start making your way through the crowd, kind of pushing your way past some of the people. While he's making his way down, how do you explain the situation? I think I heard you say something along the lines of oh, sorry, this.
I didn't say sorry.
Ah, yes. no, sorry, just an explanation. But you want to reiterate what it is that you share?
That I believe that is my one of my companions, and yeah, that's all. And I wave him over. But yeah, other than that, I let him explain himself to you to the white jackal why he was hiding in the stands.
So
Can't let him speak for himself.
yeah, you make your way down after he's seemingly picked you out of the teeming masses, and awfully quickly, much to perhaps your chagrin.
Doesn't help that you look half dead.
Yeah, you do have a bit of the pallor of a corpse. That's certainly not
Even with the
in
face
your-
covered up.
in your favor. Well, yeah, yes, you do have the mask going on, but that is also suspicious in its own
Fair enough.
right, shall we say? Hard to not be suspicious with a full face covering in a sports arena, shall we say? But nonetheless, you make your way down, and as you kind of cross the threshold into the box, as it were, the white jackal kind of looks at you, looks at the rest of the party, and he's like, and the 2 becomes 3. Well. Perhaps I've been a bit quick on my judgments. This isn't exactly the most trusting behavior. Forgive me. I'm, as I'm sure you know, I'm the white jackal. You are?
Trust. And as to the lack of trust, that was merely on my end. These 2 had no knowledge of what I was doing.
Well. And he kind of looks over at Slashet and Nesret, and perhaps rightly ascerns that the 2 of you are perhaps as say surprised, but nonetheless, despite this brief moment of tension, of distrust as he's caught spying, he seems relieved at least that it's not an enemy, shall we say, that has been eavesdropping their conversation. But he continues, well, in this case, I've made some arrangements with your companions, as I'm sure you've heard.
He nods.
How do you stand on this arrangement? You do not need to take part to feel the need. I'm sure 2 will be more than enough, but his company, I suppose. Though I offer the same exchange to you, that I might fulfill something in return for your services, and given that you've remained undetected thus far, that might prove useful. Though, should you not agree to the deal that we have carefully constructed here, I would nonetheless ask you to the same secrecy that I've requested of your companions. I I assume you understand the desire for secrecy in one's personal matters, and privacy in one's business affairs.
Much more than you think. Yes, I can keep a secret. I certainly will. As to the arrangement, I'm more than willing to offer my own services.
And what is it that your heart desires? How might the White Jackal be of assistance to you? I have.
Given my entrance, this may be supposed in bad taste to ask, but there are two things I need. One is payment. A friend of mine was recently injured. The doctor, he's tending him at his own home. I'm going to need to pay for treatment. Simply put, if you could pay me much the same way you did Nesret, I'd be grateful and I could take care of the debt right away.
Very well. Upon completion of this task, I will provide an additional sum of a request I'm happy to answer. Well, this has been a day full of surprises, shall we say? Well, some surprises, at least. And you see he kind of trails off and looks at the races. Again, third time's the charm. The Blues cross the finish line again. And you just see the White Jackal kind of smile and nod as if he knew it was going to happen. And turning back towards the rest of you, well, this has been a fruitful encounter, but I too have other business to attend to. As much as I'd enjoy to stay and see the rest of the races, I have more pressing matters. Of course, you're welcome to stay if that interests you. My box is yours for the time being. But I should be taking my leave unless there's anything else. Any last words lingering upon tongues before I bid you farewell?
Actually, there is. Do you know the name of the boat that your shipment was meant to arrive in?
Ah, yes. The, gosh. And, he struggles for a moment, kind of racking his brain for this like mundane detail. Like, this is the kind of thing that, you know, would kind of something for the cultists to handle, as it were. But the name does eventually click in the White Jackal's mind. He's like, what was it? Something with a B. Bucephalus, I believe.
I try my hardest to suppress any recognition of the name. Luckily, I'm pretty sure I'm the only one here that actually knows the name of that. Actually knew the ship we came in on.
That yeah, might be. But
the captain was bragging about it to me at port, and
he sure
you guys weren't
was.
there for that.
he
Yeah.
was quite proud of it. But anyway, on that little cliffhanger note, I think we shall head to break here, and we will be back in just a few minutes to see where we go from here. Anyways, sit tight, and we will be back just a few minutes here. right, and we are back. Thanks for hanging in with us. So, we had last left off here with our minaret sort of parting ways with the white jackal who has taken his leave after striking a bargain with the ret and has retreated back to the palace of Antiochus to do whatever it is that the white jackal is scheming away at, leaving our trio of enemies to their own devices. So as the three of you kind of sit in the white jackal's box here and weigh your options, what words do you guys share? Where do you intend to head next?
Yeah. I have no immediate plans to make this an immediate priority of mine. It's white jackal business, but how about you two?
I'm gonna prepare to take care of it. I could use some new attire, a little more fitting.
What about you, Thomas?
Considering your two's plans, I do have some other business that could be taken care of. I think I'll do that.
Should we meet up again?
Perhaps.
Yes.
Plan for that.
Tomorrow, later tonight.
What kind of time is it right now?
So you guys have been kind of active in the morning, and by now, the races are pretty solidly underway. You've had a few heats, shall we say, around the track, though it's kind of like an all-day event, as it were. A whole slew of circuits to be run, which again, the White Jackal said, if you wish to stay and enjoy the races, by all means. Though clearly y'all are intending to head elsewhere. But as far as your question to the time of day, it's probably starting to slip into the early afternoon now, probably sometime after high noon. Now,
I'm curious, has the Emperor made an appearance at the Hippodrome today?
Yeah. So, with that, during the, shall we say, there's a, how do I put this? After the first few circuits to kind of warm up the crowd, they do a couple of little training rounds, shall we say. The Emperor Justinian does make a brief appearance, and where you are seated at the front, shall we say, of the Palace of Antiochus, excuse me. You're kind of opposite sides, shall we say, of the Hippodrome, which does give you a pretty decent view to the Emperor's box, though again he's across the racing stage, and he and presumably his wife, his queen, make an appearance during the races, clad in the royal purple, as it is, and you're a bit too far to really, shall we say, make out in any great detail, or hear, shall we say, what's being discussed from the other side of the racetrack. They seem to watch with a bit of detached amusement, as well as the Emperor's booth is kind of situated with a number of term isn't quite appropriate, but the Emperor's bodyguards. I wouldn't want to call them Praetorian guards because they're not really Praetorian at this point, but same
Viking
vibe.
yet.
Yes,
either.
and neither are they Varangian, but nonetheless, the Emperor's bodyguard is out in force, keeping the Emperor safe. And you see, from watching him across the stands, as it were, he doesn't seem too invested in the races, though as the Blues continue to win, he does give some, shall we say, parting salutations to the winning team. With each, you see some nice polite clapping, and as they win again and again, sweeping the circuits. At some point you see the Emperor kind of stand and gesture to our triumphant chariot driver.
Know about this Justinian? I feel like it might be a politics role.
Yeah, why don't you give me a politics roll?
Whatever character sheet. Close it. Politics. Intelligence?
Yeah, we'll say intelligence and politics.
3 successes.
All right, so 3 successes. You've had some time to interact with the locals during your carousing and your time at the meze, and no doubt you've overheard the conversations while you've been walking throughout the city. So you've come to know a bit of what's going on in the city, or at least the peasants' perhaps view of it. And although you're not entirely familiar with this Justinian, you know that he is Emperor of Rome. And from what you've gathered thus far, he seems to be fairly popular at this point in his career. He seems to be fairly successful. He seems to be generally well liked by the populace, and the city itself seems to be in a good state of affairs. Beyond general sort of impressions, as it were, the other thing that I would give you is that at least from what you've gathered, from what you understand, he seems to share something with the white jackal, as it were. This sense of ambition, of dream, of vision. You've kind of heard amongst the masses of the campaigns that have been waged in North Africa, and the campaign to reclaim Rome itself. Campaigns that have thus far seemingly been successful, at least as far as populace is concerned. So, once again, kind of reinforcing some of the themes that you've seen today from the Hippodrome. These 2 monuments erected to military victories. Perhaps this Justinian too will have some pillars, some obelisk erected in his honor, no doubt. If only by his own accord, a self-congratulatory pat on the back, perhaps. But that is the nature of these things, you might suppose.
But yeah, aside from seeing the Emperor himself, Yeah, I don't think Sachette plans on staying here in the Hippodrome for
You know,
very long. She doesn't have any money to gamble on the races, and
don't feel
she's
like
not
making
terribly
a beeline for Justinian.
I could just walk up to him, but yeah, he does. He's an interesting he's as interesting as the statues to me right now. Um, I got other things I have in mind that I want to chase after, and he doesn't seem to be immediately in my scope right now. Maybe later.
Fair enough. Yes, and probably the wise move to make. Best not to approach such a figure lightly. But speaking of approach and travel, where is it that Sachet intends to head next?
Yeah, Sachette plans on traveling to that college that what's his name?
Athanasius, that mentioned?
Athanasius mentioned to me. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. We'll go ahead and start with you then, as we kind of split off once again. So it doesn't take you too terribly long to reach the college, the university. It is also kind of situated here in the nerve center, as it were, of the city, and it's a rather short walk for you to make your way to college, to the university. And it's a fairly impressive building, though. I mean, it doesn't hold a candle to the palace or the Hagia Sophia, but it is within its own right a testament to this institution. And from what you can see from side perspective, sort of this sort of conglomeration of a number of buildings kind of composing this campus, various schools, as it were. I imagine your sights are set for the College of Law, though there are other institutions here. You see a sign towards the philosophy department, for medicine, for arithmetic, and rhetoric. But I imagine it's law that probably catches Sachet's attention. Am I assuming correctly?
I blanked out for a second. What took my attention?
Sorry. So a number of buildings amongst the campus, as it were, dedicated, shall we say, to the various departments of this institution. The College of Law, the College of Philosophy and Rhetoric, arithmetic, medicine, that sort of thing. But I'm imagining Sachet's probably heading for the College of...
That's artistic, yes.
Yes. So you make your way to College of Law, and for once you will, as you enter into its halls, you are greeted with a degree of blessed silence, as it were, as the great doors close behind you and you soak in the environment. You can hear the faint sort of scratching of writing implements to paper, the rustling of papers. These familiar sort of sounds, no doubt.
Yeah, she just like looks around and like walks amongst like the building, trying to like remember like I've been here before. What was I doing?
Yeah.
Uh,
Why don't you go ahead and give me a memory?
I got this. I got this.
So kind of take it in.
I
0.
don't got this.
You
No,
don't
blank.
have
Zilp.
this. So you kind of, you're standing in the entry hall. You kind of look about. You kind of take it in, trying to get some sense, some context, something, but nothing quite comes to the forefront. And as you're standing here, kind of looking about, trying to trigger some memory, there's a desk. A little clerk seems to be manning the entryway here, and he kind of looks up, scribbling for a while, and sees you standing there. Kind of keeps writing and looks up again, seeing you still kind of lost in thought, wandering about, and kind of finally puts his scroll aside, and he kind of looks at you. He's like, "Are you lost, miss? Can I help you?"
Yeah, I look at him and I'm like, I'm fine, thank you. Just reminiscing of better times. Yeah, and like kind of like just brushing him off aside. She goes to like look at like the like archives. She does remember like in like a previous vision, like previous thought vision, I don't know, memory. It was revealed that she was working on something here, and like she's gonna try to like find whatever like that she was like working on here. Like if she can find like I don't know exactly the storage system that they use in a Byzantine library, but essentially she's trying to find anything she might have authored or something.
Yeah. So you kind of like brush past the clerk and kind of start making your way towards the archives. So you kind of have these, great kind of rows of shelves, as it were, and little cubes, shall we say, that makes up these rows and rows of shelves. And upon each of these cubes are kind of stuffed, scrolls and codices, and
Might
kind
take
of,
a while.
yeah, might take a while to delve through all of that. But as you kind of make your way in, make yourself at home, you hear the closing of the codex. The clerk was working on, and the kind of irritating eek of his chair,
Somebody in my
sliding
library.
aside the stone floor. And the clerk kind of gets up and he's like, "Miss, the archives aren't open for the public."
I just like look at him and like, what sassy thing do I want to say? I'm not the public, dear. And yeah, she goes back to like browsing through the archives.
And you just kind of brush the man off, and kind of dumbfounded a bit that talking back to him, unexpected as it is. He tries to like get your attention again, suggesting that you're not the public, and this time he like comes up to you, and he's like, "Ma'am, I need to ask you to leave. This isn't open for just anyone. This is only
Do you know
open."
who I am?
You want to mute your
Oh,
mic? Your
I
dad.
apologize.
So so the again the clerk kind of again insists that the archives are only open to members of the academy here.
I am a member of the academy, and I can assure you that I belong here.
And
My name is Sisette. Perhaps you've heard of it?
and the
I have 2 dots in fame, Trevor. If anybody knows, it's these nerds.
yeah, indeed. So you name drop yourself,
My own self, yeah.
and the clerk kind of looks a bit flabbergasted, and he kind of does a bit of a double take, and he's like, "What are you doing back here? Your membership has been revoked."
Who?
And the clerk again reminds you that you were removed alongside Trebonian, though admittedly he's been reinstated, but nothing of the sort has been granted for you. You've been no one's seen you.
I've been away for some time.
Well, I'm dreadfully sorry, but you're going to need to reapply for the for access to the archives. That's not within my power to grant.
Yeah, like Susette's like nodding along.
And are you just like continuing to like look through the books, or are you?
No, now that she's had a membership revoked, that's struck her. And she's paying attention to this man. Mainly because that means she'd be breaking the law to be in the archives, and that is a that goes against a very core tenet of what she plans to build her cult around. And she cannot afford such law breaking. Yeah, so she's paying full attention to him now. But I'm trying to like, Susette's trying to like.
So
with all this.
Yeah, with all this, as you're trying to like wrap your head around this, the strap that you've been revoked, that you've been like banished, from the college, they've expelled you. You literally hear something drop. You hear the clang of a set of texts kind of hit the ground, a scattering of papers kind of go flying, and you see a woman, perhaps in her maybe like late 20s, maybe early 30s, kind of haircut a bit short, and kind of rather plain attire. Like you realize that like she's dropped her tomes, her work, in response to seeing you, and with this.
Do I have a fan? Is that what's happening?
The woman comes kind of like running up to you. Clearly she's recognized you, and like kind of like tries to like take you aside, as it were, from the man here, from the clerk, trying to kind of like kind of usher you like out of the way, kind of back out towards the entrance. And she's like, Seshat, and kind of like hurries over to you, like completely ignoring all the like parchments that have just spilled onto the floor. And as she like comes up to you, like you're expecting like some fan.
Like she expects like recognition from me.
Yeah.
I'm getting that kind of feeling that I might have met her at some point. And
Yeah, and there's like
Work on it with
clearly
her.
like there's clearly like nothing there. Like you're not getting the same feedback.
Yeah, just no recognition here. But
However,
it's like
the last there's something as there's this awkward exchange, of this presumably fan of you or of your work, perhaps. The the woman kind of like leans in for kind of leans in towards you, and she whispers in your ear a brief little aside, but with this a sense of recognition, or perhaps not recognition, but an understanding of context comes to the fore as this woman, this female scribe, she whispers to you, "Your Highness, what are you doing here?" And with that, we shall conclude this session as Seshet unexpectedly runs into a former cultist. So, with that, with everything that's happened thus far, how are you guys feeling? And how's your character? What's going on in your character's mind?
I'm having fun. Getting to having to deal with this stubborn scribe that won't leave well enough alone. I've had fun with that. But yeah, I think it's just that it's a bit confused. Like she remembered at least that she was a member of this, and now she has been told that no, I had it revoked, and she doesn't know what happened here, and now she's got this woman calling her highness. Yeah, but wild time for Suzette.
Yeah. Zevlus or Prez, how are you guys doing? What's going on in your character's notes?
I got a shopping spree to go on.
You.
Yes, you do. You got a pouch full of coin. And how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm just trying to think of what I want to do next and how to fit in everything I want to do.
Too many things on one's plate. Lastly, Prez, how are you doing? What's going on in Tomos's brain?
Doing great. Definitely having fun with this. He's definitely a little suspicious of White Jackal. He wants to see what he can find out. But
Got your reservations. Fair.
for now, he'll take what he can get from him. But he's
You're not down to trust
he
him.
doesn't have enough. He doesn't have enough. He doesn't have enough information to go on to really trust this guy.
Well, we'll see how that pans out. Anyway, thank you guys for playing with me today. Thanks for being here. Thanks for everyone who's tuned in to watch us, whether this was your first time or you coming back again. Thanks to Onyx Path for having us on channel, and thanks to Tabletop Audio, who I've been using for the background music for this game. And lastly, pluggable stuff. There's still the OGL sale over at Indie Press Revolution, so check that out if you haven't. And lastly, again, the Onyx Path game night last Friday of the month, and I believe this month is the Trinity Continuum, so there should be some games of that there, but there could be anything under the Onyx Path family of games. So I'm sure there might be something worth checking out that any of you might be interested in. But anyway, thanks again to everyone, and we hope to see you guys next time for session 9 here. Take care and have a good one. See you guys later.